then I give you a review and overview. In other words, we review a little bit from last week, we give you an overview for this week. Then we go into the shlokas. Today we're dealing with chapter 2. Then we have, we'll give you some discussion, questions and discussion, and then you can make a sankalpa, a resolution about what you might do from what you've learned differently this week. And then there's homework. The homework may be to study the last portion of the second chapter, starting from about 50 onwards. And then also chapter 3, just to read it. So, we bow down reverently to the Lord. In this case, the teacher is Lord Krishna, the embodiment of sweetness and bliss supreme, whose grace enables the dumb to become open and the crippled to cross over the mountains. So last week, we went through the background. We went through the first chapter briefly, very briefly, just to give the background and paint the scene. I won't dwell on that very much. I need to say that Arjuna found himself in deep distress. And we can only imagine. We have to use our imagination to see what would battlefields look like. And while from a distance, 5,000 years later, it may seem a little mythological, it's very real when you see blood flying, when you see heads cut off, when you see widows grieving, when you see children without parents. And Mahabharata must have been so significant that the memory of it resonates today. So you can imagine all the best, the most gifted, all the kings, all gone. Only remnants in Pandavas. So that's a huge traumatic thing for the whole of society. And Arjuna must have gotten a taste of it. Very difficult position. Because things are mixed up for us, we have a number of options. We can impulsively dash toward the enemy, whatever the enemy is. And today we have enemies. It's not just the terrorists and so on that are enemies, nor is it something that is like an intangible thing like a recession or a housing shortage or any of these things. But there are, of course, other enemies, and the enemies primarily are within us. Yeah, raise yourself up by yourself, or lower yourself by yourself. Up to you. You're your own best friend. You're your own worst enemy. You think the other person is your enemy? No, it's you. You yourself are your enemy. You think the other person is your best friend? You yourself are your best friend. It's up to you. The whole situation is very dramatic because it's on a field. I said last week, when we use the word field, English word field, we mean a range. So you can have an agricultural field where you plant, where you reap, where you sow. The whole of life is such a field. We plant, we reap, we sow. We have one small word for it, karma, not only indicating action, but its effect. Its effect on who? Effect on whoever did the action. So we have to bring some of these lofty ideals into the commonplace, into your household, into your own situation. And we have to bring it into a social situation also. I'll give you an example. People who have read all these shastras. Imagine there's a party that they have in India. Everybody celebrating, everybody dancing, lots of food, fine clothes and so on. And outside, looking through the gateway, a beggar. What's our attitude? If we say, never mind about the beggar, it's his karma, or her karma, that would be bad karma for you. Because you don't have any compassion. Without compassion, real compassion, then the karma comes on you. Misunderstanding of the whole thing. So we have to have compassion. But what's the basis of compassion? All the great teachers teach this compassion. Karuna. Buddha did it. He was the most compassionate of all divine teachers. Nobody to equal him, really. Very compassionate. Arjuna speaks as if he has compassion, kripa. But it's a false compassion. It's no compassion at all. So his understanding is, I won't force it, I won't be an aggressor here, what I'll do is I'll go away. In other words, what he's saying to all of us, here's how we deal with life's problems. If you want spiritual equanimity, that's how it is, you know. A thinking man or thinking woman will say, if I want peace, then I have to resort to something innermost, something special, not the outermost thing. I have to resort to spirituality, religion, whatever it is. And therefore, his recipe is, I'll be a beggar. The misunderstanding. Even a monk is not a beggar. Very clear rules. I'm a monk. It will not be in my interest to beg. I'll have sufficiently something valuable to give and to say, and people will contribute. And that's how it works. But begging, no, I'll never beg. So he has this idea, I'll go off into a cave, forest, a romantic idea, get away from the situation. That's how I'll deal with it. And that's much better. That's his position. His position comes from a point of confusion. So the last stanza in the first chapter is Sanjaya saying, Evam mukta arjuna sankhe ratu pasta bhavishat vishrija shasharam kapam shosham vidyamanasanaha. Even having said Sankhya in the battle, on the seat of the chariot, Ratu Pastaha, what did he do? Sat down. Having cast away, Vistuja, Sasram, Sosham, that's the root, sorrow. He puts his bow down, Shoka Samvinya Manasa, with a mind distressed with sorrow. Shoka, sorrow. That's his condition. So that's how we live. Now at the end of each chapter, very, very powerful and wonderful colloquium or colophon at the end, which summarizes the whole essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Gita Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanashats Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastra. This Bhagavad Gita looks like a smriti, something that's remembered, sort of superficial scripture. But it has the spirit and it has the heart of a shruti, a perennial thing, something that is heard and rehearsed time and time again, so you remember it. So it says, in this Upanishad of the Bhagavad Gita, this knowledge of Brahman is science of Brahman, the supreme, and the science of yoga, the practical portion of Vedanta. So, in this dialogue and so on. So every chapter finishes off with that important understanding. So we begin now, second chapter. Yes.
Doubt on.
Okay.
Just as Krishna is talking about this sense of duty to Arjuna, right? So, but Arjuna could actually say, my duty is to be a warrior, but I also have a duty towards my family or my friends or my teachers, whatever. So, what is the difference between the duty to?
There's no difference. His duty, by being a soldier, by being a professional soldier, dedicated toward social adjustment and the social good, welfare of all beings. See, in those days, if you were a king and you didn't look after your subjects, somebody would come and challenge you. That's how it worked. So he's adjusting what we call dharma, means harmony. The power to change a situation into harmony. That's the meaning of dharma. But he has swadharma. That means he has something he alone can do, nobody else can do. We all have it. So it's by following your swadharma. That's the point. So he's not saying we should all be military people. Saying if you're a housewife, be a housewife. That's the whole thing about the Gita. Is take it away from the forest. Take it away from the cave. Take it away from the monastery nunnery. And put it into your life. So that you, if you're a housewife, you'll be a better housewife. If you're a student, you'll be a better student. If you're a grocer, you'll be a better grocer. If you're a politician, better politician. See, without this foundation, all our politicians and scientists of the future will not have this wisdom, but they'll have power and use it against us and against their own people. That's the difficulty. The danger is that on the other side, Dhritarashtra, we know he suffers from jealousy. We know he's underhanded. We know he's politically devious. We know it. So what will he be with his subjects? So there's no choice. You have to correct what is wrong and select the right people skilled enough to do it. But he's skilled in that. We have to assess what are our own skills. What were we born for? So last week I mentioned this. Last week I had a little fun. I said, please put your hands out. I asked, has everybody here got fingerprints? Fortunately, everybody said, yes, we have. Brilliant. You see, that's something that indicates something that is individual and special to you. Nobody else has those fingerprints. Nobody else can do what you can do. Nobody else is constructed as you're constructed. With all your skills and talents, inherited and developed, you have the ability to transform your environment and those of others and fit in, like a jigsaw puzzle piece fitting into a jigsaw. Social harmony takes place when no one is antisocial. So everybody has to fit in and use their talents. The same as building a building. Not everybody, if we all get together and say, we'll build a building, we'll build that temple in Tala. Yeah. I say, right, who will do the architecture? All of you put your hands up. There's no use to me. I only want some of you to be architects. I only want some of you to be builders. I want somebody to be quantity surveyors. I want somebody to provide the finance. Somebody to do the gardening, expert in that. Somebody to do the roofing, somebody to do the plumbing, internal decorating, and so on. All of that is necessary. So the talents are communal. It's designed like that. How beautiful. Like we're all different rainbow colors. You shouldn't insist we should be the same one. There's a great difficulty today. See? And later on here, in this second chapter, you'll find some very significant statements. One of which is, you see, this is the only system where if you have a scripture, you say, here's our goal, to overthrow, have a military coup against the scripture. The scripture has a limited value. Like a ladder, the first rung has a limited value, it gets to the second stage. When you're on the roof, you don't need the ladder. Yeah. So that's the point. Every other scripture says it's essential. Scripture is everything. This says scripture is very inferior. It's second-hand knowledge. God isn't in the scripture. The great mystics of the 19th century said this. He told somebody, bring the Bengali almanac. He brought it. Almanac to predict rainfall. Now please press it as hard as you possibly can. He pressed it. And how much rain came out? Nothing. You can't get God from a book no matter how much you squeeze. It's not there. It's in you and you alone. And religion is realization. You have to realize it yourself, for yourself, independently. Fortunately, you have all the resources necessary to do it. And when there's an intention to change your life, a sankalpa, to change your life, or to go in a more direct way, a less confused direction. We undo all that confusion that Arjuna represents, then an opening takes place like a flower. The growth is already there. Somebody wrote me a letter a few days ago. I didn't see any results, so I've stopped my spiritual practice, or I've stopped spirituality, something along those lines. I rephrased it. I said, so you're saying, because you didn't get results, you then decided to drop your spiritual practice, but you see, if you are looking for results, you'll be hugely disappointed. There are no results. A growth is growth. It doesn't have results. You can't say to a flower, in the early morning, sun has risen, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Flower, my expectation of you is to grow 2 inches today. I'll help you, take it by the head, boom, pull it. It doesn't work. Growth comes from inside. The plant knows how to draw nourishment out by itself from the soil and distribute it nicely in its individual way. And we all have that individuality, what Patanjali Yoga Sutras call the root, mula. We all have that root. It's an unconscious, subconscious root that we have that provides us with a species. So that if I sit here and a goat sits here and we both like bananas, I won't grow horns and he won't grow lecturing ability. But the same diet is there. What's in it? Something different that transforms itself. So that's the point. We have to find out what is our individual purpose in life. And do it as a part of, there's a growth. Something is evolving in me. If it wasn't like that, says the Viveka Shuddhamani of Sankaracharya, you know, you were born with a human body, not a goat's body. That's your advantage. You have an erect spine that is the ability now to think, to speak, communicate. You have a brain that can imagine, will, reason. With all that equipment, you'll evolve. Evolve what? You'll evolve, as it were, your own nature, as it were, because already there. Somebody having tried to succeed a number of times, lead a good life with an expectation of result, will sooner or later, one day, say, maybe it's not like that. Maybe the totality is sitting here, full and free. Maybe I don't have to get it. Maybe it's already here. I just have to expose it. So we all suffer from that kind of confusion. There's a beautiful song, the Bengali song, but translated. It's called Mananchal. But oh my mind, wonderful. Oh my mind, let us go home again. Why roam on earth in stranger skies? The Buddha's the five subtle layers, levels, 5 subtle wave systems that produce and condense you and me and everything around us, the matras you call it, and creatures that are seen as strangers all, deem none your own. Be love with strangers, O my mind, why should you thus forget your own? Ascend the path of truth and climb, with love as lamp to light your way. May virtues guarded well supply all needed things while on your route. Delusion waits with greed as aid. Great thieves are they to grab your wealth. They're grabbing your wealth. We don't understand it. We think it'll get our wealth, but it's stripping you of your wealth. And so it goes on like that. So Arjuna's duty is clear. He's a Kshatriya, the greatest honor for Kshatriya. Unasked, a war is there. A righteous war is there. That same war is his opportunity for spiritual growth. So if you're a yoga teacher, that's your opportunity for spiritual growth. If you're a housewife, that's your opportunity for spiritual growth. If you're a lawyer, doctor, grocer, that's your opportunity for spiritual life. If you're a student, that's your opportunity. Whatever you find yourself in, that's your field. Your field of activity in order to develop, evolve. We have a very powerful ego. We deal with this in chapter 2. This ego is part of what we call now the psychosocial evolution. The animals don't have it. is an important tool that we have. Without that tool, we cannot assert ourselves. We can't imagine, we can't will, we can't reason, we can't get our freedom. And everyone is yearning, and everything is yearning for freedom. Everyone and everything is yearning to be loved, means undivided, to be one. Everybody is yearning to be stable, unchanging, because that's our true nature. And we have this ego, which is wonderful, but we have to transcend it. That's all. If it wasn't for that ego, how is it that a child like this can sit on a buffalo and command it? How is it that a child so small can sit on an elephant? One movement of its foot will crush it. It's only that ego, I can command you. And if you doubt that it's there, say some wonderful, there's a wonderful book there, written by Julian Huxley and various other people, G. Wells and H.G. Wells. It's like, if you doubt this principle, then imagine if you didn't have it and a tiger had it. We wouldn't be here to discuss the question. So, that's the nature. So chapter 2, as an overview, tells us a few things. Chapter 2 tells us, firstly, that we have to have, there must be a tonic first. We have to have a tonic to calm us, to give us some strength, to revive us. Chapter 2, Krishna is very skilled in doing it. Then the second thing we have to understand a very important principle. We have to find our own divinity called Atman. We have to know that's our essential nature. Without doing that, we won't get any strength. No remedy. Then we have to find out what is the nature of birth and life and death. What is the nature of something that is relative and changing and something that is permanent? We have to find out what's the distinction, the importance of viveka, discrimination. And then from there we have to find out this question of swatalma. What is our duty? This is expanded now in chapter 2. And very, very important. You have to understand
Swadharma.
Swadharma, yeah. Then we have to understand this here is all to do with principle. What is called here Sankhya, but it's not the Sankhya as one of the 6 philosophies. This Sankhya really means jnana. It means the principles of the Upanishads. It means this principle of what is real, what is unreal, what should we devote our energy to, what should we leave, what is our fundamental true nature, and what is not. Then from here onwards, we find out what is the path. Karma is yoga. Yoga is karma. It's the same thing. When we use this term yoga, we are meaning the yoga of action. So these are the various things that are put forward in chapter 2. And as I said last week, chapter 2, chapter 18, these are the longest chapters because they are the most significant. They are the most important. In any good presentation, you say, this is what I'm going to present. Then you make your presentation at the end. This is what I presented. Now you know. So Vyasa, being very skilled at this, puts these principles up front. He lays a foundation. Then on that foundation he says, knowing the principles, we now tell you how to implement it in the factory, how to implement it in the home, how to implement it in the office, how to implement it in the classroom. If you didn't have this, it would have no value. Okay, so this is chapter 2, entitled Sankhya Yoga. Now, why is it called Sankhya Yoga? Well, Sankhya Yoga, don't forget, the first chapter is very important because we learn more from pain than from joyful, pleasant experiences. We have to go through that. And there's not one of us here who is not trying to avoid or strive against pain. isn't it? I never found anybody who said, my goal in life is to be miserable. Everybody wants to be happy. But where will you find this happiness? So we're striving toward one against a fear. That's our strategy. If you look at how the personality works, this is what you'll find. And it's very, very subtle because it's personality orientated. Supposing somebody says, I don't like to look foolish. They may not say it, but internally they'll know it. I never like to look foolish. I don't like to be embarrassed. Why? Because I valued me as something that was unique and special, and I was concerned what will other people think. That's my framework. That's my field. So when somebody upsets me and says, I don't like you, then when we wake up in the morning, brush our teeth, internally we'll be saying, I think I'll put poison in their coffee, what right do they have to say this? I'll give them a piece of my mind, all this. When the mind is wandering nicely and brushing your teeth, all of these things come up. A plot. 3 o'clock, by 3 o'clock this afternoon, we'll have to bury them because I poisoned them well, and so on and so forth. What right did they have to say that, and so on and so forth. All rights. It's a beautiful song I once heard by a South African composer. And he tells a story, essentially. It says, you know, when God made man, we'll take it like that for the time being, he gave him this unfortunate thing called free will. And with that free will, man decided, I have rights. I have the right to this, right to that. Now the Bhagavad Gita only mentions one right that you have. Do you know what it is? What's the right that you have? You have no other rights.
Realized.
Oh, you already have that right, yes, of course. But it's not a right because it's who you are. So, but you have a right to work. That's all you have a right to. You don't have a right to the fruits. You don't have a right to the results. But we take it a different way. I deserve this. I worked hard, I deserve it. It's mine. That presents us with something of an obstacle. We'll go into that in chapter 2. So, how does chapter 2 begin? Samjaya vacha tam tata kripaya vishtam, and so on. It says, Madhusudana. Now, it's a very interesting word, Madhusudana. You have to look at some mythology. You see how beautiful the Gita is presented. Every word is significant. So Krishna is being called Madhusudana. That means the slayer of the demon Madhu. Who is Madhu? Well, you see, one day God was asleep. See? Sometimes he's awake and sometimes he's asleep. Now you see, when he's asleep, the whole world stops. But when he awakes, it starts again. See? Anyway, one day he woke up and he had some wax fell out of his ear, and 2 demons came. One was Madhu. And they challenged him. He said, I want to slay you. They said, or what can I do for you? They said, what can we do for you in return? He's the creator of the universe. So he said, I'll destroy you. They said, because you're not good. Why are they not good? Because he's just woken from his slumber. They represent sleep. We have to destroy sleep. I don't mean to say that you should all get insomnia. That's not what I mean. Or spend the whole night drinking coffee and never sleeping. That's not what's meant. But we have something in us which, if we're not careful, we can notice from time to time. Maybe we wake up in the morning and the blanket was warm and outside was cold and the bed was comfortable. You see, you know the maximum sleep. You know the maximum sleep? 5 minutes more. That's all. It's only 5 minutes more is the maximum sleep. So you wake up, and 5 minutes more becomes 50 minutes more, and so on. That is called tamoguna. A kind of dullness sets in. It's not rational. It's not active. But it makes the mind lazy. And then sometimes the mind is hugely active. Active in what? In doing what? Active in my self-interest. And then sometimes the mind is tuned to the glory of the self. It's called yoga. That's a sattvic quality. That means it's full of purity. There's no I, there's no me, there's no mind. There's only intention for the welfare of all. It's only full of truth and beauty, goodness and love, and illumination. That's what we have to cultivate. Not squash the others. The technique is cultivate that. By cultivate that, in that, all the others disappear. They sulk and go off. See? So we have to learn the art of bringing that up more and more and more, as frequently as possible. And the whole of spiritual life is only polishing the mind, making the mind pure. That's all it is. You make the mind pure, it will reflect the glory of the self that is already there, and it will drive away all these other egoistic tendencies. But it's a step-by-step process. So if you're feeling lazy, you have to bring the next notch in, like driving a car. You have this one lever down here, you have to push it to the next level, and then push it to the next level. So activity is much better than inactivity. Even activity for results is much better. So the whole world, modern world, is obsessed. Set goals, set goals, set goals. This process of yoga says, once you've set the goal, leave it there, and concentrate on the journey. Concentrate on the activity. Make it activity-centered, not the result-centered. That's the difference. And we'll see it later. Anyway, Madhusudana, as I was saying, that demon, challenged Brahma, the creator, and said, you see, you have a towel on your lap. See? You can destroy me with your leg. See, once that towel, once you put that towel up, the towel is here, once you put it up, they thought Brahma will never compromise his dignity. But he did it. And of course, what he was doing is he was uncovering the sky, is actually what it is. In uncovering the sky, it means uncovering our ignorance. So Madhusudana, somebody can wake you up, the conqueror of sleep. The whole thing is waking you up, isn't it? What does a guru do? He just says, come on my child, I see God in you, wake up. That's all. Not creating followers. Somebody frequently asks me, oh Swamiji, how many disciples do you have? I said, I don't know, I don't collect them. I don't understand. Surely all your Swamis create disciples. No. Supposing I go on a pilgrimage and visit 12 temples or 12 churches and 12 mosques. That's 36 places. And each one I see God in them. Then I come back. You don't ask me, did you collect 36 disciples? No. But when somebody sees God in you, you don't say, that's my disciple. You say, that's the temple and God sits there. Wake up. So the whole of the scripture tells us that. Katu Upanishad, Utishta Jagrata Prapyavarandi Bodhana. Arise, wake up. Don't stop till the goal is reached, is the loose translation that Vivekananda gave to it. Same thing here. He is sleeping. So Madhusudana spoke these words to him who was thus overwhelmed with compassion. The word used, you see, is kripaya, compassion. With compassion is not really compassion, actually. It only looks like that. So with compassion, and drowned in distress and whose eyes were drenched in tears of despondency, this first shloka tells us the condition of Arjuna. Then, for the first time, Sri Bhagavan Krishna speaks Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, blessed words, Ushasta Kashmalam. Whence has this unmanly, heaven-barring and shameful dejection come on you at this juncture? It didn't come at any other juncture. But as soon as you looked across and saw Drona, who taught you how to make so much, how to be a skilled archer, you realized all these cousins on this side I'm going to kill. I have every confidence in my ability that I will kill them. And I have Krishna on my side. Therefore, it's a conclusion, foregone conclusion. But I will be killing all these. That's my huge dilemma. We can't really understand such a terrible, terrible dilemma. None of us have ever been in such a situation, let alone being in a live war situation. I'm the exception, by the way. I've been in a live war situation. So I know a little bit about it. Anyway, kripa is translated as compassion. So whence has this unmanly? It's not a sexist term. It means we have manliness or strength within us. But for this particular person, he's supposed to be manly. That's his job. That's his swadharma. Where has this come from at this juncture? Before we came here with the chariot, it wasn't there. Now we find it's there. He wonders at this dramatic change of mind. The same question was asked last week. He asked it. He said, Arjuna was Vijaya. How is it now, all of a sudden, he got this? Krishna is also wondering. This shameful dejection. Dejection is shameful. There are some people who don't understand that. I think the English are one of them. They like being miserable, somehow. Irish are a bit different. They say thanks a million, they put it. So they exaggerate it. Wonderful. Shameful dejection upon you at this juncture, O Arjuna. Why is it shameful? It's shameful because it bars the way to a higher state of mind and to its fruits. It also bars us from heaven, a swarga. Every religion has this heaven theology. It bars us. So this is the tonic that's given. It doesn't look like a tonic. It looks like a criticism. But you see, you have to shake a person out of the depression straight away. He knows how to do it. He didn't sit him on a bench, on a couch, and charge him psychology fees. Then he says, the most outstanding, these two shlokas are seen to be the whole essence of the Gita. So very simple. Klabhyam masma gama partha aitat dvavyupapadyati kshudram hritaya dalpalyam jabdo tishta parantapat. Yield not to unmanliness. Yield not to this cowardice. And then, it does not befit you. What a wonderful statement. It's a statement we can apply, I said this last week, to every child, to every person who is behaving not quite as they should. The child is behaving, you say, come on, this does not befit you. You're better than that. Somebody cheats you, this doesn't befit you. Somebody lies to you, my friend, this doesn't befit you. You're much better than that. Bring a person up. And then you see, what does he say? Parantapa, he calls him. See, beautiful. Not only does he raise him up, take him out of this unmanliness, but he tells him, wake up, O vanquisher, scorcher of foes. He gives him a compliment. Not only do I encourage you to come out of this state, but I'm also telling you, you have the potential to scorch any foe, and that's the same for all of us. No matter what condition we find ourselves, we have the ability to overcome any obstacle. We learn how to take a transformational position. What does that mean? I'll give you a small story. Supposing, since I have a small story, I have to begin once upon a time, I suppose. Once upon a time, there was a farmer, and he had to get water from his field. He had to go through his neighbor's land. See? So what he did was, he took his empty bucket every day, went through his neighbor's land to the river, and his neighbor had a funny sense of humor. He said, I will permit you through my land. The only thing is, I'll ambush you, just for sheer fun. And I'll ambush you with a bucket of cow dung, and you won't know where it's coming from. So one day I'll hide behind a rock, throw it. Next day I'll find another place, climb up a tree, wait for you. As I see you coming, throw it. Like that. Every day he found a new position. So after a year, there was a knock on the neighbor's door. There was the farmer, and the farmer had a bunch of rose flowers, beautiful, beautiful rose flowers, red in color, fragrant. The neighbor was a bit suspicious. Can I help you? He says, yes. He said, you see, this last whole year, you threw cow dung at me. I managed to collect all that and plant rose flowers with it. And you see, now I'm into the export business. So here, I'm giving you these flowers on one condition. And the neighbor thought, okay, what is that? Yes, this coming year, would you double your quota, please?
Double your quota?
Yeah. So we have to learn the art of taking all the so-called painful, difficult, unpleasant, negative things that we find. Learning the art that the rose flower itself uses. You know, rose flower can, even a tomato plant, will grow on a compost heap. It knows how to take the things that we throw away, how to take the nutrients from that. It knows how to select, how to use, how to reject, and how to make something beautiful. So we also need to use that. The whole of life is not against you. It's there for your growth. It's there to take that and transform it. And no other creature has that transformational ability. Only man has it. Only man can change their own reality. No other species can do it. So you have to take that opportunity. It's no good saying, never mind, I'll leave it a while because I have the next life. We don't know what will be the next life. I said last week, I probably have a suspicion I'll be a crocodile in my next life because I like pulling people's legs. But we don't know when it will end, and we don't know what we will be. We can't rely on it. You have all the equipment now, like having the latest car. You have all the equipment now. Even with one wheel gone or something in your leg, still you have the capacity to reach your destination, as it were. So this is petty faint-heartedness. You think it's huge, but it's actually petty faint-heartedness. So get up, don't be weak-minded. See, puffed rice, when you soak it in milk, is not really good for anything. You can't achieve anything. But the strong and virile one is heroic. So the puffed rice without the soaking is what you require. Then he goes on to say, and here's Krishna's advice, having given him a tonic. Now Arjuna says, having received that, he says, hey, once more, O slayer of Madhu, the one that slays Madhu, slayer of all enemies, how shall I with arrows counterattack Bhishma, Drona, and all the others, are worthy of worship? That's my dilemma. You, O Madhusudana, can slay all the things that need to be slain. That's virtue versus vice. But here, it's not so plain. There's good argument. On the other side, these people, if it were anonymous people, if I didn't know them, if there wasn't any unusual circumstance, I would have easily fought. But it's this unusual circumstance, it's this great thing that has made a tsunami overwhelmed with grief. How can I overcome it? How can I restore my balance? The only way is not to do it. And that's how he's resolved. Even he says, and I referred to it earlier, to eat the beggar's bread even is far better in this world than to slay those great soul masters. But if I kill them, my enjoyment of wealth and desires in this world itself will be stained with blood, is a reasonable argument. He got a shock earlier because he expected Krishna to agree with him. Yes, this is all noble, ahimsa is very good, but he didn't. And that's the character of Krishna. Only Krishna could have said what he said. Only Krishna had that depth of wisdom. The man is talking like a fool, like a wise man, but acting like a fool is really what it is. Then he goes on, whether we should conquer them or they conquer us. He's now talking more rationally because Krishna gave him a tonic. Just yield not to this unmanliness. So now he's reasoning. We all do that, isn't it? We get the shock and we then justify it in some way. Give excuses. You didn't take that. I'm in bed. Things are warm. Blanket is cozy. Somebody says, get up. Meditate, please. You say, 5 more minutes. No, you must get up then. You start justifying. I'm not feeling well today. If you leave me for 5 minutes, it'll be fine. Start rationalizing it. That's what we all do. So he's presenting a feasible argument. What seems to be a feasible argument. So I don't know, conquering us, we conquering them, which is better. These very sons of the Tarashtra stand before us after slaying whom we shouldn't really care to live. Don't you think that's a reasonable position? Then he goes through a spiritual anguish. So when we now come into this dejection, this miserable, pitiable condition in our own minds, as we do from time to time, when things aren't working well. You know, they say one of the biggest difficulties in Ireland today, for the last year or so, has not been the fact that businesses have closed, unemployment has risen, and wages have dropped. But it's how do you cope with that? The biggest disease now is stress. Not the economic side, that's one side of it, but how will you deal with it? The stress that is associated with it. So we're not talking about when 5,000 years ago. This is all up to date. And the pattern of our behavior is exactly the same. Then this spiritual anguish is like this. It comes to a crisis where he realizes, as we all should realize, I now have to turn and make a new direction, find something new. I can't do it myself. I have to resort to submission. I now submit to a teacher. There's no finer teacher than God himself. So there's Krishna. He's now asking Krishna, can you please give me your advice? Tell me what you think. Now he did it before even, when he got Krishna to drive his chariot. He realized the value. But now he's saying, I'm in a crisis. I see no way out. So it's over to you. You make the decision.